Welcome back to Systems of Scale. I'm Ian Gatsky. Today, I'm joined by JV Crum III. JV is a serial entrepreneur, founder of the Conscious Millionaire Institute, and host of the Conscious Millionaire Show, which is the world's #1 podcast on conscious business and performance, with over 3,200 episodes and 100 million listeners worldwide. Over the last few decades, he has built and exited companies and generated more than $75 million in revenue. JV advises and consults with founders and executives to become ultra performers who scale faster, profit more, and have a bigger impact. His book, Conscious Millionaire, Grow Your Business by Making a Difference, was #1 on Amazon in 24 categories simultaneously. JV continues his accolades as a licensed attorney, has an MBA, and a graduate degree in psychology. In this conversation, we unpack JV's 3-step formula for getting into flow, why awareness is the foundation of execution, and how to balance strategic planning with surrendering to the illusion of control without becoming passive. If you're new here and you get value from this conversation, hit subscribe and share it with a friend. And now here is my conversation with JV Crum III. JV, thank you so much for being here.
Ian, I am so excited because what you're doing in helping really creative people put their message out there in a world that is going to transform other people and is going to, in turn, make them wealthy. I mean, to me, that is the conscious approach to business. It's not transactional, it's transformational. How can we make someone else's life better? And in turn, I find that if we do that and we're sincere about it, we will make our own lives better. But it happens in that direction. It's outward bound, and then it comes back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about the conscious business mindset, or when you talk about consciousness in your work, what do you mean by that?
My first book, Conscious Millionaire, Grow Your Business by Making a Difference, I wrote it 7 times, literally. And about the 5th time, I realized I was using consciousness multiple ways. And I said, oh, this is going to be very confusing for the reader, because you just go back and forth between these different definitions. You better do a chapter, which I did, called When by Becoming Conscious, right? It ended up being chapter 3. And I realized I was using consciousness 3 ways. So the first way I was using it was just pure awareness. Like, how does business work? What do clients want? What's going on around you? What are the opportunities you're seeing? So you're becoming more and more aware. The second part is what I call visionary consciousness, and that's the consciousness of anybody who's a true genius and having new insights. Steve Jobs, Beethoven in the 9th Symphony, a visionary leader, a visionary politician who's truly leading the country and perhaps the world in a new direction. Visionary entrepreneurs. So they're tapping into a higher level of consciousness. A higher level of consciousness goes beyond our typical way of thinking and has some kind of collective consciousness to it, but it's higher level, and they're bringing that back down into their mind and going, oh, we could create Uber. This is where the great ideas come from. And then the third way of being conscious is more about like the sustainability movement, like you're eating healthy food. You want everybody to have clean water. Well, how do we provide that? So you're interested in that level of consciousness. And you can see that they're all intertwined, because the real theme is consciousness is about higher levels of awareness. And at some point, that awareness becomes more into the spiritual realm, more into the realm of possibility and opportunity that goes beyond what we normally see. When you get the inspired action this week, take it right then. Because that's what the inspired action is all about. We don't have to worry about where it come from. We just want to learn how to tap into it. And one of my 7 performance mindsets in my formula is flow. It's how I live. It's how I train my clients to live. And I live in flow. And when you live in flow, you're connecting into that flow state. Here's what happens always. Synchronicity begins to occur. You meet the right person. You see the opportunity, you're on the internet and go, oh my God, they're going to have this conference next week. I got to go to it. And there you meet your next client, or you meet people who become great connectors and longtime friends. That's what living in flow. But all this is about energy, and consciousness is energy. It's just the higher consciousness you are, the higher the frequency of that energy, and then the higher the possibilities
Obviously, it's probably not a thing that you can really put into words, but maybe that's what you're attempting to do with your next book, Achieve Your Impossible. How do you coach others to move up into higher levels of consciousness? Like, how do you get people to tap into those higher levels of frequency, tap into flow state? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first of all, I have a 3-step formula for flow, and we can get into that in a moment.
Of course.
I want to answer your question directly. For someone to work with me as a private client, which starts at 50,000, you can go to 1 million. So people are having to really buy in, but they want to take the kind of journey I'm going to take them on. I have certain requirements. You go like, well, JV, isn't it hard enough just to get somebody to pay you that? And well, I only want the right people to pay me that. I want them to like, they're going to accomplish something. So one, they have to agree to meditate. I've lived at a Buddhist monastery, and I went there. Why did I go to a Buddhist monastery to learn to meditate? Well, if you've never been to one, that's all they do. I said, what better place to learn to meditate? You know, let's go explore Eastern principles and go to a Buddhist monastery, which was great. It was a day of silence, and we meditated for 12 hours, which if you've ever done intense meditation, that's a lot of meditation. But meditation is one of the fastest ways to increase your level of awareness. And here's the reason. When I went to my meditation instructor the first day at the Buddhist monastery, I tend to be, and most of my clients are definitely as well, very alpha kind of people, right? They really want to accomplish a lot. They want to break out and do something they haven't done before. It doesn't matter what they've accomplished, they want to accomplish something more. So I actually went to the Buddhist monastery to become the best meditator, and I was going to show the monks I could meditate better than them because that was kind of my personality back then. So this is about 30 years ago. And then the first day with my meditation instructor, that all got blown away because here's what they told me. Meditation is the practice of being present, period. And so all of my clients have to practice being present because I go, if you're not present, you're not going to notice the opportunities. You're not going to see the possibilities. You're not going to notice the client is sitting next to you because you're too busy in your mind playing out some kind of game. Right. So everybody has to meditate. They all have to go to the gym. I believe in fitness. I believe in healthy living. And that's what I do. I was at the gym today, right? I'm going 6 days a week now. That's not uncommon for me. So they have to do these things that cultivate awareness because now you have awareness of your body. So awareness is cultivated by the way we choose to live. And then the flow part, I have created a 3-step formula because I was getting into flow. This is very common for people before they learn how to master it, is they start to have flow sometimes. So some days, everything would go right. It was like magic. And everybody has had a day like that. And everybody has probably also had a day where nothing went right. Like you go, oh my God, this just gets worse as the day goes on. I had both of those kind of days. And I'd been studying NLP for about 9 years, and I went, well, I know that everything's a pattern. Therefore, there must be a pattern to getting into flow. So I started taking all these notes and paying attention and just kind of doing self-examination. And ultimately, I came up with a 3-step formula. And then I taught it to friends. And then I started trying, I'm going, is it just my formula or will it work for other people? And then I, trained clients, and then I did classes. I've taught thousands of people how to get into this flow state. And the first step is being present. And this was even before I went to the Buddhist monastery to learn that meditation was about being present. So I start realizing, there's some clues here that if you really want to be more successful, you want to be more conscious, you want to cultivate awareness, you even know what is going on or what your client actually wants, you've got to have some kind of a practice in your life where you're practicing being aware and practicing being present. So that's a very big, important clue to success. I don't know of anybody who's massively successful in a way that we might look at and go, wow, what a visionary person, or wow, look at what great things they're doing, that doesn't in some way have some kind of practice where they're more aware and they just are constantly focused on being aware.
If you're familiar with Tim Ferriss, he has a book called Tools of Titans, where he's summarized the thousands of interviews that he's done into a book called Tools of Titans, which is amazing. Highly recommend it to everybody. But at the front of the book,
it itself is a Bible. It's about this thing.
Yeah.
I actually have it.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's a big book for sure, but worth its weight in gold, no doubt about that. But in the first part of the book, he kind of summarizes the core insights of what's consistent across all of these high performers that he's interviewed. And the one that stands out among all others. Like nothing even came close to this, but it was over 85% of the people, the high performers that he interviewed, had some form of meditation practice that they had in their daily
That makes
routine.
sense.
Amazing. And meditation for me has become a keystone habit rather over the last 5 years. And I think the more that you do it, the more you learn what it actually is. And for me, at the current place where I am, right, it's not about sitting there for 15 minutes and just being completely present the whole time. But for me, doing it 15 minutes a day, I have not gotten to that point. Like for me, of the 15 minutes that I spend doing it every day, there's maybe 2 or 3 of those minutes in total that I'm fully present. But I think what meditation does for me is it enables me to be more aware of when my mind is just racing, my thoughts are just racing, and I'm kind of spiraling
Right.
out of the present moment. And then you build the muscle of being able to come back to the present moment and be right here, right now. So I think it's just training yourself throughout that intentional time that you set aside, that 15 minutes. You're just training yourself to get lost, acknowledge it, notice it, and come back, right? And you're just doing that dozens and dozens of times throughout that 15 minutes. And that's what that intentional practice is.
And
But okay, so that's,
sometimes, Ian, as you do this more and more, there will be periods where the whole 15 minutes you're present. It will happen.
that'll be
But I want to
magical.
congratulate you for doing that, especially at your age, is that you're cultivating one of the most important practices of success.
Yeah, it was so funny how I got into it. I was trying to learn how to lucid dream, if you're familiar with that, where you can kind of
I
control your
lucid dream.
dreams.
I had my first lucid dream that was aware of in the 5th grade.
Oh, wow. It was something that I just kind of saw a YouTube video on my junior year of college. And I was like, oh, I would love to try that, figure that out. And the first step in lucid dreaming is you got to, at least in the video that I watched, is you got to meditate before you go to sleep. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this meditation thing. And I never stuck with trying to lucid dream. I did do it one time and I flew through the ceiling of my high school in my dream. And then I woke up. Yeah, I did stick with meditation just because it,
You might have had an out-of-body experience.
at least in the dream for sure. And there are definitely
Absolutely.
moments when I am meditating where I can kind of almost see myself outside my body, looking at myself sitting in the chair meditating. I don't know.
I would say that's kind of like an out-of-body experience. That's what I would call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like obviously that you're never going to do everything every single day for the rest of your life, but there are days that I miss it and I notice it. Like I can just feel it. Like there's almost like a little knot in my head that comes up and I can just feel myself spiraling out a little bit. So absolute must do for me every single day. So step one for you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So step one in kind of being able to tap into flow state of your 3-step formula is just be present, right?
Is being present. Let's go ahead and give the other 2 steps because people go, oh my God, you only gave us one. The second one is being open. Think of it this way. You're open to possibility. For example, this is very common. Happens for me. It happens for my clients. You think something's going to take you 90 days because that's how you've set up the strategic plan. But it could happen in 24 days because you just meet the right person or you have the right insight. So you're open to possibilities happening in ways that you weren't expected and including in time frames that you were not expecting. So you have that kind of openness of mind. In my new book, Achieve Your Impossible, I'm exploring things because I have to explain how to do that. And I plan for this to be a book that's going to change, many, many people's lives. But I'm kind of the guinea pig because I'll go, oh, I got to figure that out. I'll come up with something and I go, how would we do that? And so I realized that we've had this whole period and it's been very valuable, the whole concept of growth mindset. But I realize it's going beyond that. It's going into an expansive mindset where it's constantly expanding and it's expanding exponentially. So also there's a speed factor to it all. So that's the open part. And then you notice, does something feel right to you? Does it feel authentic? I don't know if you know of the Century Club, but I'm going to tell you about the Century Club because it's one of my outcomes for my life. You have to travel to 100 different countries and territories. A territory counts, like Puerto Rico. So I've been to 40, one Puerto Rico and the others 39 countries. So I've traveled 5 continents. I've frequently traveled by myself. I'm very adventuresome. And I'll go out in a city at midnight that I've never been to, and I'm walking around by myself. Wow. I've never once had trouble. I've never been robbed or mugged or anything happened. But I pay real close attention to what is going on in my body. And say I'm on a sidewalk and ahead of me, a few hundred feet, are like 4 guys coming toward me. And I'll
Yeah.
get a sense, this isn't good. I'll literally cross the street. Or I'll
Yeah.
get to a 4-way stop and you got to make a decision. You're going straight, right, or left. I just listen inside. And when I say listen, it's not a sound that comes. I'm listening. I'm paying attention to what my body is telling me. And my body will give me a real clear signal. Turn right.
Yeah.
I turn right. It works out. I can't tell you
Yeah.
what would happen if I turned left, but turning right worked pretty well. I didn't get mugged and everything was fine.
Yeah.
And so I live my life. I live my business that way. I live my investments that way. It's not like, I had a Series 7 and 24 license. That's I could have opened a stock brokerage firm. I know a lot about analyzing stocks. But when everything's said and done, I might do a lot of analysis because I'm trained as a tax attorney as well. So I do a lot of number analysis. But when it's all said and done, I step back and I go, what's the right answer? And whatever that is, that's what I do.
Might call it intuition, tapping into that, your
Yep.
intuition, that gut feel, that gut sense.
Well, I also train people in intuition because here's what I discovered. We have a fingerprint that's unique. We have an iris. That's how we do the scanning at the airports. That's unique. But we also have an intuition pattern that's unique. And I've discovered how to discover people's intuition patterns, including my own. So I help clients figure out what is their intuition pattern. And then when that's firing off, in business, very often we have to make a 10-second decision. You can't analyze everything. You just have to make a decision. If your pattern is falling off so that, you have maybe an 80% probability of success, why would you do anything else? Just do that because it has the highest probability. You don't know what's going to be the result, but you might as well choose the highest probability is the action plan.
You talk about identifying somebody's intuition pattern.
Yes.
How would you explain what your intuition pattern is?
So what I did is I took all my NLP knowledge because I studied that, neuro-linguistic programming, and I noticed that people have a certain step, like they might have a visual that happens, and then they have a kinesthetic that happens. But then I look at all the submodalities. What was the visual that typically has? Like in my case, a lot of my intuition comes as a visual in my mind's eye. I'll get stock prices. I'll get what I should buy and what I should sell. And it'll be very clear. I'll get whole sentences. And then I get a kinesthetic, like maybe a tingling in my spine. And I'll go, that's it. That's how I got Conscious Millionaire in a hot tub. I got Conscious Millionaire. I looked down and I saw the word conscious on a pamphlet I was reading. I saw the phrase Conscious Millionaire. I got a tingling in my spine. I go, oh, that's what I'm here to do. But other people might get them a different way. But I help them figure out exactly what's going on and what the subnormalities are and what they're feeling in their body. And it'll be a unique pattern for each person.
So the intuition pattern is something that you can recognize or you can notice to recognize when your intuition is at play.
And since we're talking about intuition, a lot of people write about intuition as if it's binary. It's either on or it's off. This is not how intuition works. In business, there's something called scenario planning. So you're like going, well, this might have a 10% probability and this might have an 80%, but in this way, you might be planning for something that could go wrong. In intuition, your goal is, again, it comes back to awareness. What are you aware of in intuition? You're aware of the energy fields that are all around you, and that energy contains information packets. That's what you're aware of. That's what intuition is. You're picking up information. So the greater you hone your ability to how do you uniquely pick that information up, you could have like, oh, when my intuition's right on, it's 80 or 90% accurate or even 100% probable.
Wow.
But it's not yes or no. It's about probability. And tomorrow, we're going to make that decision again. You still have to go in and connect with your intuition because everything in the universe has changed in 24 hours. Was the highest probability may not be 24 hours from now.
Yeah,
it's very dynamic.
Yeah, and all this, everything that you're saying kind of all ties back to the foundation of awareness, right? And presence and being able to tap into something like that.
I think everything
right?
is about awareness.
Yeah, and there's no way that you'll be able to recognize your intuition pattern, right? Once they work with you to identify what that is for them, unless you're being present, right? And you're being aware. Also, you're probably not going to be able to adopt that kind of idea, something like an intuition pattern, because I think for a lot of people, the things that you're talking about might sound very ethereal. I remember when I
Right.
was getting into meditation and the way that he was talking to me and guiding me through meditation, I was kind of resistant to it because it seemed so ethereal and counterintuitive to a lot of the things that I had learned, in business school, right? But I think going into step 2, right, being open to the possibilities of something working, right? You need to be open to the possibility
Right.
of it working, and then in order to recognize it and put it into practice, you need to be present and be aware of what's happening in the current moment. So the criteria of a really great framework, or that you can say that somebody's got something pretty much figured out, is when it all kind of ties back together into the foundation, right? Once you put it into practice, everything that you're teaching about
Right.
that framework and how to put it into practice kind of ties back together into the foundation. So I think you've done that with this 3-step formula. That third step, stepping into flow, right? So we got be
So
present, be
the
open to
third step
possibility.
is that it feels authentic or real for you.
Nice.
So what might
Cool.
be real for you might not be real for somebody else. So that's why the work that I do around being in the zone of flow is different than the work of other people that's more biologically or brain based. So they're looking for a certain frequency. I'm looking for where are you in this journey of flow. And the joke I have about flow is I can teach you how to be in control in terms of getting what you really want in your life. The paradox is you must let go of all the control and surrender. So flow is a process of surrendering into the unfolding flow. And you
Yeah.
don't know where it's going. And if you've never read the book, Richard Bach's book, Illusions, at the beginning of it, there's an allegory of there's this creature, and the creature's in the river, and the river's flowing, but the creatures around it are all hanging on to the rocks. And this creature decides to let go and
Mm.
move into the flow. So it's a metaphor about flow. And all the other creatures are going, oh, you're going to get killed. You're going to crash into the rocks. You can't just let the flow take you where the flow takes you. Well, of course, the creature lets go and all the miracles start to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because surrenders into the flow. And I love that beginning of the book because it's such a great metaphor. But that's really how to live a great life. August 27th, 2022, JV was camping out in the Rocky Mountain National Park, where I've camped out many, many, many times. And I went to leave, and I decided that I'd go take this road that I'd never taken. When I was hiking, there were all these roots. And somehow I did a turn, and I tripped on a root. And my head, right here, they did a great job, landed on the knob of another root, gushing with blood. And 2 people saved me and took me to the hospital that I didn't even know was there. One of them drove my Jeep, and I get to the hospital, and then, I'm talking to the doctor who runs the ER room, and I'm going, look, I'm on camera all the time. This guy end up looking good, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm kind of a good talker. So I convinced him that I could drive 2 hours back to Denver, which really I should not have done. And we all talked about the possibility that the next day I might end up with a concussion. I did. Took a year and a half. 8 months, not good. A month, barely could function. Had to cancel all my appointments. That next day, I had planned to shoot 4 videos. It was on my schedule. This is my point. We put all this stuff on our schedule, and we pretend in our mind that it's actually going to happen. Now, I don't know about everybody listening, but I can tell you in my life, a lot of it does not happen. A lot of it changes before 24 hours from now. So this is how life really is. This is true for all of us. The only difference is the awareness that we really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and God knows we are not in control of it. When we surrender, really the thing we're surrendering is the illusion that somehow we're in control of this thing called life. And I'm here to tell you we're not. And that you'll be more successful if you simply accept that. And then realize that there is something going on in this flow energy that will take you to a higher place and have you meet the people you're supposed to meet and have the experiences you're supposed to have if you quit trying to control it all and just let go and allow it to happen. That's how I live my life. And I call it a sea of synchronicity. I live in a sea of synchronicity. Today's been nothing but synchronicity. And you and I met, a week or 2 ago because we were introduced, or we would never have had this experience. And who knows what we're going to do with each other because we just met. And who knows who's going to hear me or hear you on this podcast and want to contact us? Who knows? Because that's the way it works.
Yeah. As you're explaining that, it just feels like a deep breath kind of coming over my shoulders and just kind of like a weight off of the shoulders. Because I think
Mhm.
when you carry around with you this idea that you're in full control, you're responsible for how everything's going to play out, right? It can be a heavy burden. But I
It
think when
is.
you allow yourself
Because you're
to
actually
take
going
that weight,
against the flow. You're going against the flow. That's why it feels so heavy. I want you to hear this. If you're listening and this is all you take notes on, life is in your favor. Allow that to happen. Allow it to happen. And the
that's so
higher
good.
your frequency, the more your awareness, the more you're connected to life being in your favor. And the most
Absolutely.
successful people on the planet are aligned with life being in their favor. And that's called living in the flow.
So good. There's a amazing quote too about how, and if you believe that, that life is in your favor, right? I think, people might call that optimistic, which,
Yeah, I'm
it
very
is.
optimistic.
Like,
I have to
yeah,
admit that. I'll confess it right off. I am an optimistic person who
yeah.
has a lot of aspirations for the things I want to do with the world, and I actually believe they're going to come to pass.
And I think that's just
Yeah,
a better way to live your life, I guess. I don't
I
know.
do too.
I'm not one to be like, oh, this is better than what you have, right? Because I don't think that there's any truly right answers in many cases outside of mathematics. But I think that living a life leading with optimism, yeah,
But even
leading
mathematics and a quantum computer will get you two different answers.
yeah, so even that's a little murky. Even that's a little bit murky. But
Yeah,
yeah, and that probably comes from like my philosophy background where it was the only class I ever took in school where it was like, oh, there's no right answer. You just kind of have to come up with your version of like what you believe to be right
yeah,
and build an argument for that. And I'm sure you can relate to that with studying law.
right. Well, here's
Amazing.
the
And I
thing.
think,
The most important sentence in my book has already been written: Achieve your impossible. So I just want to give it to you. None of your
yeah,
beliefs are true. None of your beliefs are true. And the reason that is correct is that beliefs are just a map of reality. And the map is never the territory. The map is a map. So by definition, the map and the territory are never an exact duplication of one another. So we have all these beliefs, and most of the wars in the world and religious arguments and, family arguments are over beliefs. But none of them are true. Then it really doesn't matter. Isn't it more important to just, as you rise up with your consciousness and awareness, you will come to layer and layer and layer that is beyond thought. And when you start bringing that information back down, then it enters thought, and then it becomes beliefs. But it's
mhm,
not the beliefs that are true, it's the higher vibration that's true. It's just that for us to articulate one to another, we have to put it into words. But it's really important to remember that those words are not actually true. If you can stay in that space, then go back to flow and we're open to whatever occurs, as opposed
mhm.
to our belief about what has to occur, which by definition isn't correct. And then you're
Right. And
not worried about being correct because being correct doesn't even matter.
yeah, I love it. Just about being and,
Yeah,
letting the flow take you where that may be.
where the flow
So,
takes you.
So how do you balance the idea of making plans, right, and setting those goals for yourself and casting this vision of what it is that you want to achieve in your life? So how do you balance that with, okay, I have this vision of what it is that I want to achieve. I have these goals for myself. I have this plan, but in reality, probably none of it's going to work out the way that I plan it to. So how do you balance the
Yeah.
value of setting plans and
It's,
setting
it's
these
such
goals with this
it's a
reality?
fantastic question. I'll tell you a story about what actually happened. So I was selling companies, took me a year and a half. And during that time, I decided that my initial phase after that was I'm going to take like a 4-month journey in the United States and Canada. And I also did a lot of research of countries I wanted to visit. This is back in the day when JV still believed that these plans and beliefs were true. I created this elaborate plan of 4 months, what I was going to be doing every day, what road I was going to take between places. I mean, I had it down. It was in Florida. I left out. I was on I-75, and 100 miles into that journey, I had it that I was turning right on I-10 and then going up the East Coast. At about 10 miles before I got to I-10, I start having this inner feeling that that's not what I'm supposed to do. Metaphorically, as I got to I-10, I threw my entire plan out the window. And I kept going north. My
Mm,
entire journey was different. And fairly soon I came to realize this was like, let's just say the universe was teaching me, or I was learning. It's two sides of the same story, how to live in flow, right? Because I was living in JV hyper plans everything and is micro in control. That was why I was living at that point in my life. Every day was making up this journey, which was like a whole new way to live. But at the end of 4 months, I got pretty good at it. And so I just kept paying attention to where I felt urged to go. And the entire trip was totally different than what I had planned. So I had read about this Buddhist monastery in Cape Breton Island of Nova Scotia called Gampo Abbey. I'd read about it in a Lonely Planet book because I found those were really detailed. I really liked Lonely Planet travel guides. I'm driving on Cabot Trail. It's 163 kilometers or something like that. Had I been looking left, I would have missed this small sign that was about 2 feet off the ground, wooden, that said Gampo Abbey. But I was looking right. And I saw the sign and I went, oh, that's that Buddhist monastery. It's the only Tibetan Buddhist monastery in North America. And there's a little dirt road. So JV knows he's supposed to turn down that dirt road. And I go down that dirt road about a mile, and I get to this Gampo Abbey, which I later stayed at. And I got there at exactly the moment they open once a week for 2 hours to the public.
Wow.
Okay. This is that synchronicity stuff. I go in, I'm talking to all these people. I pick up every pamphlet they have. And that night I'm like in the middle of nowhere in this little old mom and pop motel. And I'm reading this stuff and I go, oh, they have a retreat in January and February for 7 weeks. I'm going. So I called them the next morning. They informed me I would not be coming because A, I wasn't Buddhist, and B, I'd never meditated. And you have to meditate for 6 months to get into the retreat. Across Canada, so this is Nova Scotia, as far east as you can get, and I'm going over to Vancouver, right? I called them 9 total times. And 9 times they told me I wasn't coming. Then I get down to San Francisco, and it's Thanksgiving, so I have 2 stories there as well. And I called them again, and they said, we had a meeting yesterday and decided if you called us again, it was auspicious. That's a Buddhist word. They love that phrase, auspicious. And they said, and you're supposed to come. And they let me in. Wow. And the rest of my life was totally different because of that experience, right? That same day, I called Esalen, which I knew of because I did a master in clinical psych in LA, and Esalen is where the human potential movement began on the Big Sur coast. I got in there as well. And then it was Thanksgiving, and I'd gone to the concierge, and the concierge said, everything's booked up. I get this vision. I'm supposed to go up Powell Street to Nob Hill, and I was supposed to go to the top of the Mark Taper Hotel. So I do, and in my forehead, I get exactly what to say to the maitre d'. I'm the gentleman you've been waiting for, the one without a reservation. I get up there. The lobby is filled with people bitching like crazy because they're like an hour behind on their, because I've done a lot of these fancy things, and by mid-afternoon, they're all behind, right?
Yeah.
And I walk up to the maitre d', and I said that exact line. And she says, give me just a moment. And then she comes back and she says, could you come with me? And she takes me over to the bar, which had 4 bar stools in the corner that had the best views of San Francisco. Amazing. And she says to me, if we put a place setting here, would this work for you? I'm thinking, give her a break. Okay.
That'll do
I said, yes, that would work very well. I was there 4 hours. Met the bartender who gave me an etching he had done, which I still have. Met all these socialites from San Francisco having their drinks before. Had a fabulous time, had the best seat in the whole place. Because I knew I was supposed to go there and I knew exactly what to say. And that's another part of being in flow. Yeah. It's how I live. Every day is like that.
Just a completely different definition or version of the old saying of just going with the flow. Right. That's going with the flow in action, in day-to-day action. And all that, again, just ties back to being present, being aware.
It's awareness.
Being able
Everything is about awareness. You can't run a business if you aren't aware of what's going on. You can't serve your clients if you don't know what they really want.
Yeah.
You can't build a team if you don't know what's going on with your team and hire the people who have same values as you do, because you will
Yeah.
miss that in the interview.
And is that really the scope of the plans that you coach your clients through setting, right? Is it kind of a, an ideal outcome that they want to achieve?
I would say it's part of the process, because everything
Yeah.
I do is utilizing the three-part formula to be an ultimate performer. You shift your mindset, then you shift your strategies. And once you know what the strategies are, now you can execute. I hope that seems reasonable, but I cannot tell you how many people I have met, including as clients, that are not doing it in that order at all. But that is the only order that will maximize your results.
And is the scope of shifting your mindset, is that getting kind of coaching people through adopting and recognizing the power of awareness, getting into flow, right? Kind of being able to recognize these things and operating from a place of that awareness and presence to be able to tap into the flow that comes with it?
Yes, actually, it is. It's constantly working with them from different angles, because I work with them on moving from scarcity into abundance. So they have to create this abundance mindset. But my work is just moving far beyond just beliefs. Because if you read books on mindset, most of them are about changing your beliefs. All the beliefs are wrong anyway. So this is not the answer. The answer is raising your awareness so you move beyond the beliefs themselves. And then all of a sudden you just start connecting in this energetic field, because that's all there is. I mean, if you go back to Einstein, E equals mc squared, there's only energy. There is nothing else going on. Another way to say that, there's only consciousness. There is nothing else going on. And if you look and you study quantum physics, which is one of my hobbies, you will find that we're only going to see that which is vibrating at the same speed we are. And if you take that to sound, you don't see the notes of music floating in the air, because it is vibrating at a different level than we are. And dogs can hear frequencies we can't hear, because their ears are receiving those, because they receive different frequencies, right? We don't even know they exist. But the truth is they're impacting us in some way, because that's all there is. So the more you become aware, part of the meditation and all that is raising your awareness. And that also has to do with diet and exercise. That's why all that's important. It's not just, oh, it'd be nice to live longer. It might be nicer to live better, more full, more aware, even aware of what your body is saying to you. That's why I will not work with a private client that A, won't meditate, and B, won't go to the gym. No. If you're eating that dense food and you're putting a bunch of sugar in you all the time, this will not produce the best brain waves and energy waves so that you're going to pick up what you really need in order, and you're not going to have the energy. Amazing. So all of it comes down to energy and awareness, but energy and awareness is really saying the same thing. So I want to put it into perspective. What is very clear to me is that inner world of consciousness and mindset is 80% of your success. But the 20% of having the right strategy, the most important strategy, is your business model. And having the right execution, having the team working together. It's not like you can throw out all the stuff I learned in an MBA and go, oh, we'll just sit in the corner and meditate. No, this will not work, folks. I don't want you to do that. You actually have to take action. You actually have to have the right strategies. It's just when you cultivate a higher level of awareness, you will see different strategies. You'll see ways to grow exponentially that you didn't see before, and you'll then be able to execute on those. That's why it has to happen in that sequence. And it's not linear, it's iterative. You're constantly going to higher and higher and higher levels.
And it's also iterative throughout the journey of execution, right? Like you're going to go down one path, but then you need to be able to have that. Because you're going to get
feedback, and you're going to, oh, that didn't work the way I thought it was going to work.
Yeah, you're going to need to be able to change your beliefs, recognize that, oh, that was wrong, that idea was wrong, and then recognize and acknowledge a new path forward, and then go and try that for a little bit.
Well, that's really the process of marketing. I love marketing. Marketing is the scientific process of changing a variable and see what happens. Right. That's what marketing is. And it's very exciting.
It is. Yeah. You have a hypothesis, like, all right, we think that this is going to work. We're going to do this, and this is going to yield this result. And then you get a bunch of data information, and you can change course and try again.
You go, wow,
love it.
I didn't like that at all.
That didn't quite work. Yep. I love it. You wrote Conscious Millionaire. It was a huge success. Why were you called to this second book? Like, why did you feel the need to do the work that you're doing right now to explore these new ideas, explore these new concepts for your second book?
Yeah. about a year and a half ago, I was going through a lot of personal transformation. I had a year in which I went through like lifetimes of personal transformation. Like it was hard to even keep up with myself. It was not the best year in business because if a client or a prospect talked to me on Tuesday, and then we had another conversation on Wednesday, my offer wasn't even the same because I had evolved like a month's worth overnight. Very destabilizing. I certainly say that. And now I have people that come to me that are going through those kinds of experiences. And I go, okay, well, I know how to deal with this because I've been through it.
Been there. Yeah.
And I asked myself, well, what do I really want to be doing? So it wasn't like I wanted to throw out the conscious business concept because that's like core to my values. But by really being honest with myself, I said, I think you wanted to build a human potential business. I think that's what you've always wanted to do. So I decided to transform Conscious Millionaire into bringing in performance. And I looked at different ways of verbalizing it. But I really came down to what is everybody I want to really work with? What is it they're wanting? They're wanting to perform at a higher level. And the people I most want to work with I'm the avatar. Like now all my clients are me. I will never, ever, ever be satisfied. I used to have people who would try to convince me that this was a flaw in my personality, right? Mm-hmm. I've concluded it's just who I am. And I have concluded that most people who are highly successful are just like me. We just aren't satisfied with whatever we've accomplished. And we want to accomplish something more. Now, that's who I now work with. And that's because I brought in all this human potential and started talking about, I played around with different words. And when I came up with ultra performance, I go, that's it. We want the ultra level. And then I redefined it as performing at the top 1% of human beings. And then I started creating all these engineering tools, pieces, and, 7 performance mindsets and figuring out different angles that I could do with people. Then I realized that's who I really want to work with. People who have had success, and wherever they are on the journey, what's more important to me is that they have an inner thirst and drive for more. And they are not going to quit. They're not quitter type people. As I get to know my new ideal client, most of us have had at some point in our life some trauma. It's just the way it turns out. I've been very open about it. I was sexually abused for 12 years. That's pretty heavy trauma. I had to go to a lot of therapy for that, but I moved through it. But I am the classic survivor. I don't care what you do, I will survive. And I've turned this classic survivor into the classic thriver. I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive. Yeah. Most of my clients are exactly that same way. It's because the truth is, as human beings, we all go through stuff. But some people just get stuck in the stuff, and other people transform out of the stuff into doing something more. And those are the people that I call out to now. I go like, you want to change the world. You want to build wealth at a level you never have. You want to go climb Mount Everest because you haven't. I'll help you do it. And I've come to the place that I genuinely believe at my deepest core level. And I think the belief is true. But as you already know, I don't think any beliefs are true. But that I can take anybody on the planet to a higher level, provided one thing, because I've really analyzed this. They have to be committed to going there. I can't do that piece for them. But if they're committed to going there, I can help them figure out how to get there. And that's who I work with. And it's fun.
Who you want to speak to.
It's a lot of fun. Here's the deal. If you're making at least $500,000 a year, I will give you a complimentary session. But here's what I want you to do. So that I know you came from this show, when they go and fill out the form, what should they put in there so that I know they came from you?
Put in implement.
And I'll help you figure out with absolute clarity in that session, what is it that you really want to accomplish? I meet with so many people and it's a lot of fun. I love what I do. And people will look at me and they'll say something and I'll go, is that what you really want? Or did you want something more? And they'll go, I really wanted something more, but they're afraid to say it. And I go, no, just say it. We can't get there unless you tell me what you want. Let's at least start with what do you really want? And don't settle for less. And then we're going to figure out what's holding you back, what steps you need to take to get there. Because I believe anybody who's really committed, I don't care where you are, I don't care what your intelligence is, I don't care what your education is. If you're really committed, I think you can get there.
And the only way that you really get true deep commitment is if you're authentic with what you really want, right? So we're in working with you in that breakout session.
Authenticity is one of my words. Authenticity and journey is that you've got to take that authentic journey. You've got to be.
Yeah.
I really challenge you if you're listening, because I don't think there's an accident. If you're listening, you got this far. I mean, might as well just completed it. That I find that life works best when I'm very raw. People are often shocked, and they'll tell me, even on my podcast, they'll go, "Oh my God, you're so vulnerable." I go, "I just live vulnerable. This is not hard for me, folks. I'm just who I am." And here's one of the most magic moments in your life. If you haven't gotten there, I want you to know I've gotten there, and I can tell you what it's like. I couldn't care less if you like me. I just couldn't care less. And for God's sakes, don't think I'm going to change anything about me so that you will, because I don't care. Now, when you have that kind of freedom, you can be anybody you are. You can really be that authentic person because you no longer are trying to please anybody. Yep. You know, I happen to be looking for a relationship now. And one of the things I figured out about this relationship, because I'd like it to be long-term, is I only want to have it with somebody who in no fashion or form needs me. And I don't need them either. Yeah. We just want to take a journey together. But that's a different relationship.
Yeah. And I think just to put the underline on that last point that you made, if you aren't worried about becoming a person that the other person in front of you or other people are going to like, it's going to give you the ability to dare to dream for the things that you want to dream for.
Exactly. Because now you're free. Now you're free.
Yeah.
You know,
and it'll be able to
I'm building a global nonprofit in 30 years. My outcome is that every human being on this planet has food, housing, healthcare, and access to education as a new form of being humanity. And I believe we can accomplish that. And it's interesting because I tell that to a lot of people, as you might imagine. Some people who are on the same wavelength, they go, "Wow, that's exactly what we ought to have." And then other people look at me like I am truly crazy. And they go, "Oh, that's ridiculous." And I go, and this is what I tell every one of them. That's why it's not your assignment. That's why it's mine. Because I know it can happen. And I'm going to figure out how to get there and get a team of people working together who are committed and believe in that outcome because they think the world will be better off. So if you're making at least $500,000, I'd love to give you a session. It's meetwithjv.com. And Ian, tell them again what they're supposed to put.
Put implement. Yeah, implement so that you know you came from here. And I'll leave the link to that in the description wherever you're listening to this. And JV, my last question for you. If you had a billboard that everyone in the world could see for 10 seconds, what would it say and why?
Live your true journey.
Love it.
Because if you live anything else, it's not going to be right.
JV, thank you so much for the time today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I want to thank everybody who's listening and that you're connected to Ian and you're in good hands.
And that does it for my conversation with JV Crum III. Here are my 3 main takeaways from the conversation. Number 1, flow is a practice, not a personality trait. JV breaks flow into a simple 3-step sequence. Be present, be open, and move towards what feels authentic to you. Number 2, awareness is the real multiplier behind performance. Meditation, fitness, and clean up inputs are not just nice to haves. They're how you raise your baseline awareness so you can see opportunities, make better decisions, and actually execute. Number 3, most stress comes from the illusion of control. The more you surrender the need to control the outcomes, the more you can operate in a sea of synchronicity, as JB calls it, where the right inputs, people, and timing show up faster than your plan could predict. If you want to get connected with JB, go to meetwithjb.com and use the code IMPLEMENT to book your own free clarity call with JB, and use that code IMPLEMENT so he knows that you came from the show. If you're an author, course creator, consultant, or coach and want to close the client execution gap in order to increase your impact and client retention, download the free Program Execution Engine Toolkit at the link in the description. And additionally, I'm actually working with JV to build out some companion GPTs for his book, Conscious Millionaire. And if you want to test out, do some of the work that JV assigns in his book, obviously buy the book, read the book, but then when you want to do the work that's assigned to you in the book, use the companion GPT in the description. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you all in the next one.